The moment you decide to claim your millionaire life is the moment it begins. There is no waiting for it. There is no process. There is no distance. The only thing that separates you from the riches you desire is your acceptance of the fact that they already belong to you. The instant you stop trying to become a millionaire and instead live as though you already are, everything in the world bends itself to make that truth visible. You do not need to struggle. You do not need to struggle. You do not need to impress anyone. You only need to feel it real. The millionaire version of you already exists right now, in this very instant. You don't need to look out there for signs. The only sign you ever needed is within you. The moment you claim it internally, the world externally begins to reflect it. Start now, not tomorrow, not next week, not once you finish the course, not once you earn more, not once you find the right contact. Right now, in this moment, in this breath, imagine the life of your dreams is already yours. Not someday, but this day, this hour, this moment. Close your eyes and feel the weight of abundance in your hands. Hear the sound of luxury in your footsteps. Smell the fragrance of success around you. Let your mind saturate itself in the feeling of wealth. It is not a fantasy. It is a seed, and once felt, it is planted, and once planted, it grows. You've been told your whole life to be realistic, but realism is just repeating what the world has already shown. Creation is not about repeating. It's about choosing. You are not here to observe life. You are here to claim it. You are not a spectator. You are the creator, the painter, the poet, the architect of your destiny. Your millionaire life begins when you say it does, and not 1 second later. Feel the gratitude you would feel if the money were already yours. Not gratitude for what is coming. Gratitude that it is already here. You do not manifest by begging, hoping, or waiting. You manifest by assuming the position of the one who already has. Speak as that person. Think as that person. Dress, walk, and breathe as that person. Be that person. People will ask, but how will it come? That is none of your concern. The how is never your responsibility. Your only task is to dwell in the state of your fulfilled desire. The rest unfolds in ways you cannot plan, predict, or force. Money may come through a new idea, a phone call, an inspired action, or seemingly out of nowhere. But it will come, and it will come fast, because your state determines your fate. You've been taught that you must earn wealth through effort and years of grind. But let me tell you a secret. Nothing comes from effort alone. Everything comes from state. A person in a poverty state can work 20 hours a day and remain broke. A person in a wealth state can work 2 hours and receive millions. Why? Because the inner world always precedes the outer. The cause is internal. The result is external. You must stop looking at your bank account to decide how to feel. That number is not the truth. That number is old news. That number is the shadow of past thoughts and past feelings. Do not take it seriously. Instead, take your imagination seriously. Take your inner conversations seriously. Because what you say to yourself becomes the life you live. When you walk through life in a state of lack, everything you touch reflects lack. But when you walk in the state of abundance, everything must bow to your assumption. You will notice opportunities begin to find you. People begin to treat you differently. Ideas arrive. Synchronicities happen. And it is not magic. It is law. The law is this: you become what you accept as true. It is not about affirmations alone. It is not about vision boards or journals or lucky coins. It is about knowing, deep in your being, that what you want is already yours. The millionaire life is already created. Now you must match it in thought, in word, and in feeling. Don't wait for the outside world to validate your new identity. You are not living for their confirmation. You are living from your conviction. You are not trying to convince the world. You are convincing yourself. You are impressing the infinite subconscious, which never sleeps, never forgets, and always delivers. And when it is impressed with the image of wealth, the world reshapes itself to fit that image. What would it feel like to wake up tomorrow a millionaire? How would your breath feel in your lungs? How would your voice sound when you speak? How would you treat yourself? How would you carry yourself in a room? How would you respond to life? That is the version of you that must be lived now, not one day. Now reality follows your dominant state. So make wealth your natural state. Don't visit it for 5 minutes while meditating and then go back to worry for the other 23 hours. No. Dwell in the state. Saturate yourself in the knowing. Let the new story take over your mind. Let it be the only voice in your head. Let it drown out the noise of doubt and fear and limitation. You are not meant to beg the universe. You are not meant to suffer. You are meant to choose. And once chosen, life rearranges. Your part is simple. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Your millionaire life starts today because today you no longer hope for it. You know it. You no longer wish for it. You live it. Walk down the street and feel the richness in every step. Sit in your home and feel as though it's a mansion. Eat your meal and feel as though it was served in a five-star resort. Speak to others with the calm certainty of someone who has already arrived. You must outgrow your old identity before the new one becomes visible. All great change begins in consciousness. You cannot change your outer world while remaining the same person inwardly. You must die to the old you, the version of you that needed, wanted, waited, and you must rise as the version of you that has, that knows, that lives from the end. You may look around and see no evidence yet. That does not matter. The tree does not doubt the seed just because it hasn't sprouted. The flower does not question its blooming. It knows that life unfolds by inner law, not outer sight. You must hold the knowing, even when the world tells a different story, because the world only catches up after you decide. So decide now. Decide that you are wealthy. Decide that you are a millionaire. Decide that you are worthy. Decide that your dreams are real. And then act, think, speak, and feel as though it were already done, because in truth it already is. Time is just the unfolding of your conviction. This is your moment. This is your turning point. This is the hour that everything changes. You will remember this day as the day you finally claimed the life that always belonged to you, not because something external happened, but because you shifted inwardly. You stopped trying to attract and started to embody. You are not hoping anymore. You are not wishing. You are not asking. You are claiming. You are becoming. You are remembering who you really are. A creator, not a follower. A chooser, not a chaser. Wealth was never out there. It was always within you, waiting for you to say yes. And now, you say yes. Yes to the riches. Yes to the freedom. Yes to the ease. Yes to the success. Yes to the luxury. Yes to the joy. Yes to the joy. Yes to the miracles. You say yes, not with words alone, but with your whole state of being. The universe is responding. Doors are opening. Paths are forming. Money is moving. Opportunities are aligning. People are being placed. Ideas are arriving. Not because you forced anything, but because you became the person for whom these things are natural. Claim it. Breathe it in. Let it be normal to you. Let it be expected. Let it be obvious. You are not becoming a millionaire. You are finally acting like one. You are not growing into it. You are awakening to it. You are not chasing it. You are living it. Your millionaire life starts today, not because of luck, not because of chance, not because of effort, but because you finally chose to believe. You finally stopped arguing for your limitations. You stopped repeating the story of your past. You stopped waiting for permission. You gave yourself the permission. You looked in the mirror and decided to stop pretending to be small. You chose to remember your true nature. You stopped negotiating with doubt. You stood in your own power and said, "This is who I am now." And life heard you. And now it responds. It responds to your new state, your new self-concept, your new identity. It reshapes itself to mirror your knowing, not your hoping. Your knowing. Let the old story fade. Let the old beliefs dissolve. Let the old you disappear. You are not that person anymore. You are wealthy now. You are powerful now. You are free now. Let it feel so real that you no longer care if it's visible yet. Let the feeling be enough. Let the knowing be your reward. And watch, as the world transforms to match it. Your millionaire life doesn't wait. It begins now, the moment you claim it. So go ahead, claim it. As you walk through this new version of yourself, watch how the world around you bends in subtle yet powerful ways. People begin to treat you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. Circumstances start to align, as though they were waiting for your permission to do so all along. Money begins to move in your direction with ease. Not because of force, but because of flow. This is the power of assumption. The silent authority you carry. When you stop trying to get and begin to be, you'll notice how your conversations shift. The words you speak are no longer soaked in doubt or worry, but anchored in certainty and calm. You no longer ask, "Will it happen?" Instead you say, "It's done." You no longer seek proof outside yourself. The proof is the feeling, the knowing, the vibration you carry in your body. That's the evidence the universe responds to. That's the frequency where the millionaire life becomes natural. You may still have the same job. You may still live in the same house, but the person inside is entirely different. You carry yourself with a new grace. You make decisions with ease. You expect good news. You welcome surprises. And each of those external moments begins to reflect that internal shift. It's like watching the movie of your life change scenes. Not because the projector changed, but because the film did. And the film is your assumption. Do not be concerned if others don't understand your transformation. They are still watching the old version of you, but you're not living for their eyes. You're living from your own vision. You're no longer controlled by what was. You are now governed by what is in consciousness, in assumption, in inner truth. That is the seed of manifestation. That is where all abundance flows from. And so you keep returning to that inner state, not once a day, but moment to moment, not out of fear, but from love. You treat your state like a sacred space. You no longer entertain thoughts of lack, because they have no place in the mansion of your mind. You do not argue with reality anymore, because you know that reality is not fixed. It is fluid. It bends to your inner world, always. Even when challenges arise, you no longer react with panic. You respond with poise, because you understand nothing can stop what has already been claimed. The outer world may flicker and shift, but your inner knowing stays still and certain. That is your true power. Not reacting to appearances, but returning again and again to the truth you've accepted. I am already that which I desire to be. And this knowing begins to bloom, not overnight, but inevitably. You will see signs, but more importantly, you will feel stability. You will feel a calm assurance that doesn't need validation. That's when you know the seed is growing. That's when you know the world is catching up. And while others chase, hustle, and exhaust themselves in pursuit, you move through life with elegance, because you've chosen the higher way, the way of inner assumption. You no longer try to manipulate the outer. You work on the only place that ever mattered, the inner. You polish your thoughts. You elevate your feelings. You align your identity. And the outer must follow. Now, as this new way becomes your normal, you'll find that abundance becomes effortless. Money comes through inspired action, not obligation. Clients, contracts, opportunities, they all begin to magnetize to you. But you don't rush. You don't grasp. You remain steady in your conviction. You've stopped chasing, because you've become the thing others chase. You've stopped searching, because you've realized it was always within. The bank account grows. But more than that, your self-concept evolves. You no longer measure yourself by digits, but by alignment, by integrity, by how deeply you live in your chosen state. And with that shift, all the outer wealth becomes a side effect, a mirror, a reward, not for effort, but for embodiment. And what once felt like fantasy now feels like fact. The mansion, the freedom, the travel, the luxury, the peace, it all feels normal now. Not because the world gave it to you, but because you first gave it to yourself in consciousness. And once it felt natural inside, the outside couldn't help but catch up. You no longer live with doubt in your heart. You live with direction. You no longer wait for blessings. You are the blessing. You've realized that all wealth is created in mind and claimed in spirit before it can ever materialize in form. You are no longer a beggar to life. You are the master of it. You've awakened from the dream of limitation. You now walk with the authority of one who knows. And so you live differently. You no longer shrink your dreams to fit your current conditions. You expand your identity to match your highest vision. You are no longer the echo of your past. You are the sound of your future calling itself into being. Each step you take affirms your new reality. Each breath you breathe carries the weight of destiny, not because you waited for permission, but because you claimed it. And now the path is clear. You no longer fear the unknown. You trust it. You no longer resist the process. You enjoy it, because you know it's already yours. The wealth, the peace, the impact, the freedom, it is not far. It is now. It is here. It is within. As this truth deepens within you, you begin to look at life differently. What once appeared as obstacles are now seen as illusions, remnants of an old identity you've already outgrown. You no longer question if things are working. You simply assume they are. Your confidence isn't blind. It's rooted in knowing that the world cannot help but mirror back to you the state in which you consistently dwell. And you dwell in wealth. You dwell in abundance. You dwell in fulfillment. There is no longer a sense of waiting. That restless energy that used to plague your mornings is gone. You rise with assurance. You walk with intention. You rest in peace, because your reality is no longer dictated by appearances, but by awareness. And you are aware that you are rich, not becoming rich, not earning richness, but already rich in the ways that truly matter. First in mind, in energy, in assumption. And as this new identity crystallizes, you begin to forget the old one, the stories of struggle, the beliefs of unworthiness, the memories of lack. They dissolve like fog at sunrise. You remember who you really are. You are not your past. You are not your balance sheet. You are not your failures. You are pure potential wrapped in intention. You are imagination clothed in skin. And everything in your world is here to serve the state you hold. When others ask you how you did it, you will smile, because you'll know they're still looking outside. They want the technique, the formula, the steps. But you'll know the real secret was not in doing. It was in being. It was in your willingness to persist in the unseen, to remain faithful to the internal, when the external said otherwise. It was in your quiet decision to live from the end, no matter what. And you did not argue. You did not plead. You did not try to convince others. You simply became. And in that becoming, you were met with more than money. You were met with joy, with clarity, with purpose, with presence. Because the millionaire life you claimed wasn't about paper bills or numbers on a screen. It was about freedom. The freedom to choose, to create, to rest, to give, to expand. That is the wealth no one can steal. The gold no economy can touch. Now when you speak, your words carry power. Not because they are loud, but because they are true. You speak as one who knows. You move as one who has. You radiate the peace of someone who no longer doubts the outcome. You've become a lighthouse in the storm, a signal to others of what's possible. When you stop trying and start knowing, and it becomes impossible to go back. You can't shrink into the old mindset. You can't pretend you're powerless. You've seen too much. You've felt the truth. You've lived the shift. You are no longer a student of wealth. You are its embodiment. You've allowed the illusion of poverty to fall away like dust from your shoulders. You walk now in a garment woven from belief, from certainty, from clarity. And it fits perfectly. Even your desires change. You no longer want wealth to prove anything. You want it because it's natural. You don't chase material things to fill a void. They are just expressions of the fullness you already feel. You see luxury not as excess, but as a mirror of your internal permission. You allow yourself to have more, because you know you are more, not because you did more, but because you remembered more of who you already are. And in that remembering, the flow never stops. You find yourself in alignment more often. Your days carry a rhythm, a quiet excitement, a sense of ease. You trust your decisions, not because you know the future, but because you've chosen the future. You walk by inner light, not outer sight. You are no longer tossed by the wind of circumstance. You are the mountain it moves around. And now others begin to notice. They ask what changed. You didn't win the lottery. You didn't stumble upon some miracle windfall. But everything about you is different. They can feel it in your presence, hear it in your tone, sense it in your calm. And maybe one or two of them will be ready to hear what you now know. That the greatest shift is not in the world but in the self. And those who shift inwardly will always receive outwardly. So you smile, and you continue to live from this truth. Not once, not sometimes, but always. You've discovered that the most powerful act you could ever perform was to assume your desire fulfilled, and walk as though it was so. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. That's not delusion. It's divine memory. It's you stepping into the version of yourself that the universe was always waiting for. And so this way of living becomes not just a momentary experience, but your permanent foundation. The energy of wealth surrounds you, now not as something you grasp for, but something you radiate. It is no longer an effort to feel rich, it's effortless, because you've conditioned your inner world so completely, that the outer has no choice but to follow. It mirrors, it reflects, it responds, always. And you trust this law because you've seen it work, quietly, consistently, and with precision. Even when things appear slow, you don't panic. You've moved beyond impatience. You understand that what's real is what you persist in internally. The world is simply catching up to your decision, and you don't need applause, proof, or permission anymore. You are the evidence. You are the answer. You are the living embodiment of a new pattern, a new vibration, a new story. And every time you return to this feeling of having it now, you reinforce your chosen identity. Not because you need to make something happen, but because you're simply remembering that it already has. You're not affirming to attract. You're affirming to align. You're not visualizing to get. You're visualizing to feel. Because the feeling is the truth. The feeling is the seed. And that seed, once planted in faith, will never fail to grow. The world around you bends with increasing speed now. Resources gather. Money flows. Opportunities multiply. But what once would have excited you now just feels right. It feels obvious. Because you've changed the thermostat of your identity. You've reset what's normal. And Millionaire is now your new normal. Not out of pride. Not out of ego. But out of truth. Quiet, calm, solid truth. You've stopped pretending that life is something to win. You've started to live like someone who knows it's already won. And from this place you no longer crave. You create. You no longer desire. You decide. You no longer wait. You walk forward with certainty, knowing that the version of you who already has it is you. And you see now that the journey was never about chasing the outcome. It was about becoming the person for whom the outcome is natural. And now that you've become that person, you don't feel desperate. You feel inevitable. Everything you touch begins to shift because everything you believe has already shifted. And there is a sacred power in this simplicity. No longer do you jump from strategy to strategy, wondering which one will work. You understand that strategies are just tools, and tools obey the hand that wields them. And your hand is now steady. Your heart is now resolved. Your identity is now anchored. Others may still struggle with belief, with fear, with confusion. And that's okay. But you've crossed over. You no longer need to see to believe. You believe and then you see. You've reversed the equation. You've returned to the original design. And now wealth, success, freedom, joy, they all flow toward you like rivers to the ocean. Not because you forced them, but because you remembered they were yours to begin with. As this remembering becomes your way of being, your reality solidifies around it. You wake up each morning not in hope, but in certainty. You don't question if today will bring good, it must. You don't wonder if things are aligning, they already have. This is not about denial of facts. It's about devotion to truth. And the truth is that consciousness is the only cause. Your outer world was never the source. It was only the echo. You realize now that nothing can be taken from you, because nothing was ever given to you from outside. Everything flows from within. And since within you holds the source, you are always supplied, always resourced, always backed by something greater than logic, greater than odds, greater than circumstance. You are backed by the infinite power of assumption. And when assumption is fused with conviction, nothing can stand in its way. You begin to see that this life you live is not linear, it is quantum. You move by state, not steps. You collapse time by identity. You don't climb a ladder. You teleport by shifting your inner frequency. And this knowing gives you peace. You don't rush. You don't stress. You don't chase time anymore. Because you've realized time bows to the one who walks in the state of the wish fulfilled. There's a lightness in you now, a peace, a confidence that doesn't need to be loud. You don't need to justify your success. You don't need to defend your abundance. It simply is. And anyone who steps into your presence can feel it. You're not the same. You've aligned with the version of yourself who always knew this was possible. You are no longer becoming. You have arrived. And that arrival is not one event. It's a continual unfolding. Day by day, moment by moment, the world reshapes itself to reflect the inner kingdom you've claimed. Not because you worked harder, but because you thought differently. Not because you waited for proof, but because you acted from belief. And this belief has become embodied, automatic, woven into the fabric of your every move. You don't pray for money anymore. You give thanks that it's already here. You don't hope for breakthroughs, you celebrate that they are part of your reality. You've dissolved the old paradigm of if and when. Now everything is I am and now. You don't wait for doors to open. You walk as though the building is already yours, and it is. The version of you who once doubted this would have a hard time recognizing you now, because you're no longer moved by temporary circumstances. You're moved by inner truth, and the inner truth is so strong, so grounded, that even when appearances contradict it, you remain unshaken. You don't waver. You persist. And persistence is the mark of the master. Now that persistence is effortless. It no longer feels like work to dwell in the feeling of wealth. It feels like home. You don't have to convince yourself anymore, because there's nothing left to convince. You've crossed the threshold where belief turns into knowing, and knowing turns into being, and being turns into having. You've realized the external is just the shadow of your inner light. So when you want to change something out there, you don't touch the shadow. You adjust the light. You return to the silence within. You return to the invisible world where everything begins. And from that space you choose again. You feel again. You decide again. And the outer world obeys. Your mind is now clear, focused, directed. It no longer runs wild, reacting to every little thing. You don't live in reaction, you live in creation. And it's not because you became smarter or more disciplined. It's because you finally believed enough in the unseen to make it your permanent dwelling place. You took ownership of your imagination. You respected your inner world more than the outer noise, and that reverence changed everything. Now money comes to you because you don't need it. You appreciate it. You respect it. You love it. But you are no longer defined by it. It no longer has power over you, because you've met its true source, your own consciousness. You no longer serve money. Money serves you. It flows where your identity flows. It gathers where your state is rich. It multiplies where your assumptions are abundant. And your days are no longer filled with frantic action. They are filled with aligned movement, inspired action. You don't do things out of desperation. You do them out of joy. And because your state is so deeply seated in wealth, everything you do carries the vibration of success. People feel it. Life feels it. And results reflect it. And when people ask what changed, what secret you discovered, you'll tell them the truth they've been overlooking all along, that it was never about trying harder. It was never about doing more. It was never about effort. It was about alignment, about decision, about identity, about assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled until that assumption became more real than anything the eyes could see. And the most beautiful part is you know this is only the beginning, because now you carry the key to everything. Not just money, not just success, but any reality you desire. It's all governed by the same principle, the same inner law. You now know how to shift into the experience of anything, because you've mastered the art of claiming the end and trusting its unfoldment. And every single morning you rise with the same simple remembrance, it's already done. The life is already mine. The wealth is already mine. The wealth is already mine. The joy, the freedom, the love, it's already mine, because I say so, because I feel so, because I live from that end without wavering. Because you live from that end, life continues to shape itself in your image. You no longer judge by appearances, you no longer shrink when results are delayed. Delay is no longer delay, it is development. You understand that everything seen is just the echo of what you've already claimed within. So you remain calm, unmoved, unbothered. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that reality is bending, even if it's still invisible to the eye. Others may call it luck. They may call it coincidence. But you know better. You know that everything that arrives does so in response to the vibration you hold. You know that every dollar, every opportunity, every new door, none of it happens to you. It happens through you. Because your world has no choice but to echo your dominant state. And your dominant state is wealth. You walk through stores now not checking prices, but checking alignment. You sit in luxury spaces not as a guest, but as if you belong because you do. You engage with money not from lack, but from mastery. You see money as a friend, not a savior. You treat your thoughts as sacred, your feelings as instructions, and your inner world as the throne from which everything flows. And in this new way of living, things unfold fast, but they also unfold peacefully. Because when you are certain, You don't need to rush. You are no longer addicted to speed, because you already feel fulfilled. And that fulfillment speeds everything up. It creates a life that not only looks rich, but feels rich. Not only has wealth, but is wealth. You've returned to the source. You've reclaimed the seat of power. And now no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you carry your fortune within you. Because you know your millionaire life didn't come from outside. It came the moment you became it inside. As you continue walking this path, you begin to forget that you ever struggled. Not because you're ignoring the past, but because it no longer feels like yours. The story of scarcity feels foreign now. The vibration of lack feels heavy and distant. You look back and see how it all served a purpose to bring you to this moment of awareness. A moment where you are no longer entangled in the illusion of needing to get, because you already are. You already have. You already know. And the more you embody this knowing, the more the external aligns to match it quietly, precisely, and without force. You find yourself in the right place at the right time. You meet people who open doors without effort. You attract situations that seem to read your thoughts, and you don't act surprised. You smile, because you've expected it all along. And this expectation isn't a demand, it's a natural extension of who you now are. You don't just believe in abundance, you embody it. You don't just talk about wealth, you live it in your being. It shows in your posture, your tone, your presence, your decisions. Not because you're trying to impress the world, but because the world now simply reflects the truth you've accepted. Everything has changed. Because you changed. You did the only work that ever mattered, you assumed the identity of your highest self. And by doing so, everything else rearranged itself around that choice. You stopped hoping. You stopped waiting. You stopped begging. You stopped asking when. You said now, and now answered, and you realize this power has no limit. If it worked for wealth, it will work for anything. Because the law does not discriminate. It responds to the inner man, not the outer appearance. It answers the state, not the words. It is not impressed by effort, it is moved by conviction. And your conviction is now unshakable. You've proved it to yourself. You don't need external validation anymore because your results speak louder than any praise could. You live now in a state of deep allowing. Things come, and you receive. Not with desperation but with grace. You understand that the river of abundance never stopped flowing, it was only your belief in dams that slowed it down. And now that you've dismantled those dams, the current of good is constant, steady, overflowing. And your life is filled with signs, not because you begged for them, but because you no longer need them. They show up not as reassurance, but as celebration. Your inner world and outer world have fused. No longer is there a gap between desire and experience. You dwell in the end. You no longer visit it, you live in it. You don't touch it occasionally, you breathe it constantly. Now your imagination is your favorite place to go, not to escape reality, but to shape it. You understand that the unseen is more real than the seen, that what is imagined with feeling is more powerful than what is observed with doubt. And you trust that feeling more than you trust what you see, because what you feel now creates what you will see next. And so you continue to return to the feeling of wealth, not because you're trying to get rich, but because it is who you are. It is your native state, your natural home. And from that home, all good things flow, not once, not occasionally, but endlessly. So now there is nothing left to wait for. No more hoping, no more doubting, no more searching. The search ends because the answer has been found, not in the world, but in you. Your millionaire life doesn't start when the money arrives. It doesn't start when the conditions are perfect. It starts when you say it starts. It begins the moment you rise in consciousness and declare, I am that. And now you are that. You no longer walk in shadows, you walk in truth. You no longer act as a seeker, you live as the one who has found. Every step you take from here is no longer a step toward the dream, it is a step as the dream fulfilled. You are not becoming rich, you are rich, and the world is just catching up to the power of your assumption. Remember this, the world reflects you, not your effort, not your struggle, you. And now that you've shifted, everything else must shift too. You've claimed your throne, you've entered the state, you've decided. And because you've decided, it is done. Your millionaire life starts today, and it starts not with action, but with awareness, with assumption, with identity. It starts in the silence of your own inner certainty. Claim it, now and forever, and the world will move, bend, and unfold to prove you right. You are no longer waiting. You are already living it. And so it is.